Welcome to Lion Eats. I'm your host, Frank, and today we're going to talk about the revolution of car sales, from handshakes to hashtags. Do you think it's a good idea to get a job at a car dealership selling cars? This is something that someone asked me the other day. Obviously, they knew I've been in the automotive industry for over 20 years, and it got me thinking because the answer is not as easy as yes or no, if I have to be honest. So I had to think for a second. And I didn't want to mislead this gentleman. I kind of want to give him the whole picture, not just yes or no. So I think I should start by the story of how I got in the car business. And it's actually a funny story. You guys probably will like this one. I got a lot of stories to tell you guys. Through a mutual friend, I was introduced to this guy. He owned a small car dealership. He probably kept about maybe 15, 20 cars. 20 cars I'm talking about is on a good day. It's like a little tiny small place. He had the car, I wanted it, but he had it in the color that I wasn't sure about. So me and my dad told him we're going to be at the dealership at this day at this time. It was around 6:37 p.m. We arrived and he was by himself. The car wasn't there. Typical car business, I'm telling you. Uh, it was really funny, but he was a nice guy. So we sat down, we're talking to him, we're talking about life. Him and my dad get along, they're talking, and he's asking me how I'm buying the car. Do I have any car credit? Do I have any credit cards? How am I buying? I'm paying cash. The typical car sales guy. At this point, I've never worked at a car dealership, obviously. And so while we're waiting, the car is not there. He tells us that his girl, his wife at the time, his young wife at the time, is driving the car. And she's on her way down to the car dealership. So we waited, I think we waited like 20, 30 minutes before she showed up. At this time, we're almost like running out of what to talk about. So we kind of, everybody's like kind of looking at each other. It's kind of getting awkward. So the girl shows up, his wife shows up. So keep in mind, he's about maybe 60, 65. I think he's around 60 years old at the time. And his wife, a beautiful girl, she's about, I want to say 20 something. So she shows up. We all get introduced to each other and she decides to take off. She decides to take off with another car. So she leaves the car, gives the keys to this gentleman. So we grab the key, we go for a test drive. He says, why don't you and your dad go on a test drive? I don't have to go, so you guys go by yourself. So me and my dad would go on a test drive. And while we're driving the car, I'm kind of looking around the car, opening up the glove compartment, checking around, making sure everything works, everything opens up, nothing is, broken or whatnot. And while I'm doing this, I'll find a diamond ring in the center console. So we'll finish with the test drive. We'll go back to the dealership. Obviously, the lady's gone, the girl's gone, and it's just him by himself. We tell him that we like the car and we want to buy it. But I told him I found this ring in the center console of the car. He was very shocked. You should have seen his face. I mean, he was changing colors. It felt like he saw a ghost. When I told him I found his ring, he was so shocked that there was a pause in his response. He thanked me for it. He took the ring back. He looked very disappointed. He was just not himself at that moment. And he said that he can't believe that I gave him the ring. And I told him about it because supposedly it's a very expensive ring. And that is his wife's wedding ring. Did you hear that? That was his wife's wedding ring. I mean, what are we, we didn't think of anything. I just gave him the ring and he said he couldn't believe that I gave him the ring and that was an expensive ring and that was his wife's wedding ring and how is it possible for the ring to be in the center console? So now we're talking about three dudes looking at each other, thinking about this whole situation. Now, at this point, it's kind of getting serious. And I think we told him we want to buy a car and I filled out an application and we left. We kind of left at that because I was a first-time buyer, so-called, and I've never purchased a car before, so he had to make sure he can't get me financed. Not gonna lie to you, that night we got back, I was thinking about the whole situation, and I never forgot that day. The next day he called me, and he offered me a job, and he told me I was approved for a car. He offered me a job because while we were sitting waiting for his wife to show up, he asked me questions and I told him how much I enjoy cars and I like to be around cars, and that's kind of like my passion and what I do for a living or whatnot. So, and then when I found the ring and I gave it to him, I think he felt like he could trust me, so he offered me a job. Plus, he was a one man show. He could use the help. He had someone coming to clean the cars once a week, but besides that, he really didn't have anybody else. It was himself and working all the time by himself. And I can already hear some of you gonna write comments about, oh yeah, because he was working all the time. That's why his wife left the ring in the center console. But man, that was something. Anyway, so he told me that I was approved. I needed like 50% down or something to get the loan. It was one of the shady loans. And I mean, it wasn't a shady loan. Obviously, I was a first time buyer, but it wasn't the best loan in the planet. So he offered me a job and I was all excited. So I accepted the job. I accepted the job and I started working there. I think like a week later after that, we became really good friends and he started teaching me how to fill out a credit application, how to talk to the customers when they come, what to say when they say this, what to say when they say that. Just the basics, you know? But since he was a one-man show, I had to learn how to do a lot of things by myself. The only thing I didn't do at the time was printing contracts and submitting credit applications. And my first customer, I always remember. I don't remember his name, but I remember the whole, when I met him, what he said to me. Obviously, I was there by myself. As I said, this guy just taught me a little bit and then he was just gone. So I was all day by myself at this dealership. First day at work, I saw this gentleman pull up with, I think it was a BMW 5 Series. It was a gold champagne color BMW 5 Series. He pulled up and I walked outside, greeted him. I said, welcome, and how can I help you? The first thing he said, are you new? And I was like, damn, man. I mean, how'd you know? Like, it was like the craziest thing. The first thing he said was like, are you new? I was like, yeah, I'm new. How can you tell? Is it that obvious? He started laughing. I was laughing. He was laughing. He said, no, man, it's not that obvious. It's just, I know the place. I know the guy. And I know he always worked by himself. So when I saw you, I obviously knew that you were new. So that was the funny thing. As soon as he saw me, he's like, are you new? I was like, I must have done something or said something wrong for him to think that I'm new. But that was not the case. He just knew the place and the owner. He wanted to change his older BMW 5 Series for another car. And other car that he chose, the funny thing was the same color of his old car, also a BMW 5 Series. It's just a little bit newer. I think I remember he was a banker. He worked at a bank. He was wearing a suit, tie. You know, he was dressed nice. At this point, we went for a test drive with the new car. And I had to call the owner, be like, listen, Mr. Such and Such is here. And he said, take care of him. He's a VIP. He buys all his cars from me and whatnot. And now I'm all nervous, not messing things up. So we go for a test drive and we come back. And he said, okay, he likes the car. And I was like, okay, well, come inside. I didn't know what to say, what to do. So I took the guy inside. I called the guy, be like, what do I do? He said, okay, well, grab one of these papers. It looks like a contract. It's a credit application. It's the long forms. Today, these days, everything you do online. Back in the days, you had to actually grab one of these long forms and fill out necessary information. And I remember he said, give it to me, son. I know how to do it. I've done a few of these. Man, it was so embarrassing, but it was fun at the same time. He was a really cool dude. It was a great experience for me just to go through the whole process from the beginning almost to the end while we were waiting for the owner to show up. He grabbed the application and he filled out the whole application. He was the first and the last person that I saw filling out an application absolutely, completely the most perfect way. I've never saw anybody else after him doing that. Most people are lazy to fill out application. Even the salespeople. If you're a salesperson and you're watching this, you know what I'm talking about. You just want to do a 5-liner. In car business, they call it a 5-liner. You just want to do a 5-liner, just do, okay, name, address, what do you do, how much money you make, and that's it. So that was not the case with him. He filled out the whole thing. So while we're waiting for the owner to show up, he said, well, you gonna go look at my car? I was like, for what? He said, I want to give that old car to you guys and buy the new one. I was like, oh, cool. Yeah, sure. Let's go look at it. So I called the owner again and I told him he wants to sell his car. He wants to give us his old car. At that moment, I found out what the trade was. So the owner told me, yeah, he wants to trade the car. Well, I will teach you what to do. Walk around the car clockwise. Take a look at everything. If you find a scratch, any damages, whatnot, make a note and point it out so he sees it himself. Because sometimes people own a car, they might not remember it, or when you point it to them, it kind of makes it more obvious that it's there. So I walked around the car with him, and at this time, I took the car for a test drive. So we went around the block with his car, and we came back. His car was fine. It's just older car. He just wanted a newer car. That was my first experience with a real customer, with a real scenario of someone that wants to purchase the car. I didn't really have to do much of his selling at this point because he really liked the car that he was buying. And I didn't know much at the time. I was more of like an order taker. He said, I want to test drive it. I'll take him over for a test drive. I really didn't know what to do or what to say. I learned a few things that day. So we came back and the owner was there at the time we got back, and he took over the rest. And that was my first car that I sold. He had a really good credit, so there was no issues. His old car was paid off, so he used it as a down payment towards his new car. He was a legit good customer. Like that's the type of customer you want for life. Good credit. He knew exactly what he wants. He was nice, and he was fair, let's just say, because he didn't really negotiate on the trade. But I don't remember what we gave him for a trade or how much the new car was, or maybe because he trusted the owner. The reason I say this is because that day I realized how much relationships with the customers are important. Sales is all about relationships. That's what I wanted to talk about. That day I learned that relationships with the customer, when you take care of someone, they always come back. And that was the case with this gentleman. And you build trust, they come back and they trust you and they take your word. Will they negotiate with you? Obviously, everybody negotiates. And if they don't negotiate, there's definitely something wrong. But besides that, I'm telling you, relationships is the number one. How you treat a customer, how you follow up with the customer. So that's how I started, and I actually really enjoyed the whole process. I kind of liked it that I was there all by myself. He was never there. After he hired me, most of the time, he was not there. Back in the days, every morning we'll go turn on the cars. There weren't that many cars, so for one person, it wasn't that bad. We'll go turn on the cars, make sure the cars turn on, batteries are not dead, windows go up and down, whatnot. So I was very excited about my job and whole car sales. I love the cars that I was messing around with. Take cars on test drives left and right, and it was just such a fun job. I really enjoyed it, and that started causing me wanting to be better and do better at what I do. And while I was working there, it was a situation like where the car dealership was located. There was like a bunch of other small used car lots around it too. And because of that, I started getting to know other people around, next door, across the street. And I worked there for about a couple of months or so. And while I was there, I think I did a really good job. I know me saying I did a good job, it doesn't sound good, but I think I did a really good job. And I'll tell you why, because the guy that hired me decided to shut down and close down the dealership because he decided to. Now, we're getting back to the first story of how I met the guy and how he offered me a job. He decided to close down the shop. He decided to divorce his wife, and he had a child with her. It became such a drama. He decided to move away, leave California, go away with his son, getting divorced from that young girl. But I guess that night that I found the ring in the car, I like to think that was not the cause of it, but who knows? And the reason I said I was doing a good job, I think, was because the guy across the street found out about the whole situation. So he walked over one day and asked me if I want to go start working for him across the street. And I did. And I said, yes, I love the job. I mean, I was getting better and better at it. I get to spend, time with cars. And another great thing about working in a small car dealership, I think it was because you will be hands-on about everything. So you learn about everything. I learned about buying cars, selling cars, how the finance works, how you go to auctions. I had to go to auctions with them to pick up cars, drop off cars. And it was funny because I didn't have an auction card. So they kind of tried to get me in, like all being sneaky about it. And he's like, oh, yeah, just walk behind me. They don't check. But back in the days, it was so much different. It was so much different. I'm talking about 2003. That was a long time ago. So I started working for the other guy across the street. I made a lot of good friends, in the car business. We used to work every day. I mean, I liked the job so much. I didn't really care about having a day off. We work every day. The commission, it wasn't anything like it is today. If you're a salesperson now, you understand what I'm talking about. So commission back in the days, I remember at that time, it was like 20% commission from the front, the difference between what the dealership purchased the car versus what the dealership sold the car. That profit, I would get 20% commission on that. And we had minis. Minis were on a car that didn't make money, or the profit was not enough. Maybe it was an old age car, or there was something wrong with it, or whatever the case may be. Our minis was $500 at the time. We were making good money, not gonna lie to you. The money was decent. And as a young person, obviously, I was really enjoying the job and the money. Plus, I was around all the cars and I was learning about the business. He ended up selling the car dealership. He used to run the place with his family. While I was working there, I got to know another guy. It was a short, handsome guy. He was really good at finance, especially subprime. He was so good at getting people finance. He had a really good relationship with the bank reps. I remember he was friends with them. They would call each other. They would go out drinking together. He taught me a lot about business as far as the finance department goes, about applications, how to submit applications to the banks. He taught me how to read credit reports and what to look for and what caused someone not to get finance, especially people with bad credit. The guy that I was working for, the second place, he ended up selling the place to another guy. They own a new car franchise and they wanted to expand their used car dealerships. I think they had like 12 or 13 used car dealerships and one new car franchise. They were a big operation. They were very smart. And I also met some new people through them. And I met this one guy. The first day we met each other, the first day he saw me, I remember we got into an argument because the jacket I was wearing or something, supposedly he was one of the managers. I wasn't sure what kind of a manager he was because he would go from one dealership to another. He really didn't have a title, but he was one of the, higher up guys. Really cool dude, but the first time he saw me, I think it was my jacket or maybe something about the way my clothes was. He told me something like, why am I wearing this? And I told him, what's wrong with it? The other guy saw me, he didn't complain. Something in that line. I mean, I was a new guy, maybe he wanted to let me know that he's the big boss over there. But anyway, so we got into an argument the first day and I quit. I was like, you know what? F this, I'm out. I remember I started walking out and the other dude showed up. He's like, where you going? I was like, well, he told me this and I told him that. And I was like, I'm not going to take his BS. I was a little hard-headed. So I got my job back again. So he told me, come back. Let me introduce you to the guy. He's totally fine, this and that. And we became really good friends after that. And that was another fun story about my third job. So we became really good friends. And he was a master at buying cars at auto auctions. He taught me how to buy cars at auctions, how to price cars, and when to take in effect additional value added for the miles and when not to. We became really good friends. We used to go out drinking after work. And so he taught me a lot. He left. He started his own dealership. We would just move around from one used car dealership to another used car dealership. I did that for about a little over 3 years or so. And after that, I decided to go work for a new car franchise because I wanted to learn how new car franchises compare to used car dealerships. So I wanted to experience that as well. I always had an idea of starting a business. always been an entrepreneur. As long as I can remember, I don't know how old I was the first time I thought about owning a business. I've had so many different ideas, so many different things I've done. That's for another story. We'll talk about it maybe on another episode. But I decided to go work for this new car franchise. It was a Ford dealership. I walked in the same day I got hired. I told them what I've been doing. The guy hired me. He was like almost like 400 pounds. He was a closer. I spoke to him. They had salespeople, closers, sales managers, a general sales manager, and general manager. And I remember they had like 7 or 8 finance managers. It was a very large Ford dealership. I think they were selling like 400, 500 cars at the time. I also learned a lot from that closer because they had multiple closers. They're like teams. Like you will get hired, you will go to someone's team, and you work with that closer. Unless that closer is sick or is not there, another closer will come and talk to your customer. So your job was to stand outside, call ups. So calling up is the customer walking into the dealership. So every salesperson is standing outside and calls whatever car, bike, person walking towards the dealership. So it was a funny thing. I've never experienced that back when I was selling used cars. So this whole thing was new to me. But one good thing about this starting working for Ford was when they hired me, I was not allowed to talk to a customer until I'll go through a small, short class they had. It was like a 3-day class I had to take. And there I got introduced to Grant Cardone. I had to watch videos of Grant Cardone. That's how I started learning about sales. Yeah, Grant Cardone was the first guy. There was another guy too, I forgot his name, but they were playing videos of him, like what to say if the customer says this, what to say when the customer says that. And then the closers will talk about like overcome this objection this way, say this if the customer says that, things like that. I got introduced to the whole idea of learning sales by looking at experts, listening to experts, reading about it. When I was at the used car lots, I just listened to the people around me, thinking they know better. And some of them did. Some of them were really good at what they did. But I wanted to learn more. That wasn't enough for me. After that 3 days, I was allowed to stand outside calling ops, red, blue, different colors of the car were coming in. It was very crazy. I couldn't. If you would have asked me how that felt before I got the job, I would say that is crazy. Standing outside, there were like 20 people standing outside. People were screaming, yelling, like yellow, black. It was crazy. It was madness. But I had to be just like them. You had to fight for the op that you wanted to get. Otherwise, you wouldn't be selling cars. Everybody else take the ops if you don't call that op coming in. And a lot of times, that the customer, or not the customer, but the car you will call, like let's say Blue or BMW or whatever, they would not end up coming in. So you had to keep, calling the ops till you get the one that is your turn. So we call the ops, then we go greet the customer and help him, show him the car. I did one deal with this gentleman. I walked up. He got out of his F-150. He had an older F-150 and he wanted a new one. I remember that was the first car I sold at Ford. It was a F-150 King Ranch. I opened the doors and it smelled. If you know what I'm talking about, if you have ever sat inside a Ford F-150 King Ranch, you know that smell of that leather, the type of leather they use in that car. I actually liked it. And I was like, wow, that was like so luxurious to me. I opened the door. It was just so cool. And, it was an amazing feeling. So since I was excited about the car, I was excited showing the car to the guy. And he was all excited. Obviously, he came for an F-150, but he didn't know he wanted that car. But I was so excited. Oh, touch this. Feel this leather. Can you smell this? Can you smell that? And he got sold. I didn't realize how excited I was caused him to get so excited that he didn't want to even look at another car. And he ended up buying that car. He traded in his old F-150, purchased a new one. And at this time of my career, I've only dealt with purchases. I have not yet dealt with any sort of leases. It was not really a popular thing to do at that Ford dealership. I never really had a customer ask for a lease. I didn't even think salespeople knew what lease was at that place. I was also introduced to the BDC department. So they had this BDC department non-stop calling customers that have visited the dealership or have called in at one point. And these people were hammering the phones. Like there were like, I think it was like 10 of them in that room. It was a madhouse. That dealership was crazy. I learned so much at that dealership. But the attitude of the higher up managers were not the best attitude in the world. And me being hard-headed, we keep, not really getting along. One day it was raining. There was this one guy walking in the middle of the lot, pouring rain. He's walking outside. So I grab an umbrella, walk outside. I'm like, dude, you need help? What are you doing? You want to come inside? I mean, you all wet? And he was happy. Cool dude. He said, no, man, I'm just enjoying this rain and let me be. My car is in the service department getting fixed or getting looked at. And that was it. I walked inside. The sales manager, at that time, there were towers. Sales managers would sit on top of towers because they were obviously higher up than the salespeople. That's why there were towers. Also, towers meant for them to be able to kind of look over, the whole sales staff. But I always thought to use towers to show their power, that they're sitting higher than everybody else. I don't know. That's how I always felt like about the whole tower situation at the car dealerships. I never really liked it. Because, when you talk to them, you have to like kind of look up to them type of thing, I never liked that. Long story short, I walked inside. He said, what happened to that guy? They didn't want anyone to leave without one of the closers or if the sales managers talk to the customer. I said, what happened to that guy? Why didn't he come inside? I told him, he said he has a car in the shop and he was just enjoying the rain. He was loving the rain and his car is in the shop getting fixed, getting looked at. And I think he said something in the line of, you should have bring him in and let me talk to him. I was like, what the F are you talking about? What do you mean bring him in? He didn't want to come in. He's not looking for a car. So at this point, I've been working at this Ford dealership for about 3 months or so. Let's just say, I think about 3 months. So at this point, he's yelling at me. I'm yelling at him and I'm not taking shit from anyone. And I'll let him have it. And he was letting me have it. And at this point, we almost got into a fight, like a physical fight. So it was time for me to move on. I picked up the phone, called my buddy. He worked at GMC. I grabbed my stuff, walked out of Ford, went to the GMC dealership and got hired there. And I started working there. But I learned a lot at Ford. So I actually liked that job because he taught me a lot of stuff. But it was a very toxic environment. And there was a guy working there. He would show up late, like maybe around 10:30, 11 morning. Every morning, he would show up, not wearing a tie, because at the time, everybody wore suits and ties. He would show up, not wearing a tie. He was driving a brand new Denali. He would come and he would go in his office. And I was like, who's this guy? He would not come to any of the sales meetings, nothing. He had his own schedule, his own department. I was curious to find out what he does and, how does he make money? Is he one of the salespeople? Because he will have people show up out of nowhere, keep asking for him. So I started asking around what he does, and I found out he does subprime financing, special finance department. That was his department. It was a one-man show. It was him and him by himself. He will show up late. He will dial some numbers, help people get finance. And these people that were in need of purchasing a car, these are people that had a hard time getting finance, will come and buy a car from him. And he was making good money. He was wearing, nice clothes, brand new Denali. It was one of the most expensive trucks at the time. So I started becoming very good friends with him. And I started learning about special finance from him. So at this time at GMC, I was learning how to close deals, become a closer, and from this guy, how to do special finance. So that one first finance manager at my second job, he got a job at another Ford dealership. They gave him a special finance department and he needed help. Since we were really good friends, he offered me the job. Since I was learning about special finance and I knew some from the past from him, he gave me the job. He said, come and work with me and I will teach you more about special finance. So I left GMC. I learned so much about finance and special finance. We'll purchase leads from people that have bad credit. And I will start dialing, hammering phone calls, one after another, getting people in. The first car I sold there, it was a Chrysler. It was red. This one guy, he wanted a car. He couldn't get finance anywhere. I got him finance on that, little car. I think it was like $8,000 or something, or $10,000 or something. And he came and he purchased the car, and that was the first car I sold there. And I was very excited. And after I sold it, they told me that car was sitting there for so long, and they did not know if that car ever gonna sell. I was like, oh my God, I guess that's, I took it as a compliment. That Ford dealership, that was a fun job. We had our own schedule. We'll come in whenever we want. We will leave whenever we want. We both left that place. I started working at the Infinity dealership. But in this journey that I'm telling you, as when I started and where I'm leading to, these little things that I learned only got me more excited about learning more and be better at what I do. But I also learned a lot about car dealerships and how they work. And as I was learning this, I started working for Infinity. And there was this general manager working there. He hated me. He loved me because I was selling a lot of cars. And he hated me. Actually, before that, I started working for a couple other places. I worked for Dodge. Then I worked for Audi. Audi lasted maybe a month, maybe 2 months. But that's where I met one of my very, very good friends. He's a Italian-American guy. Maybe I should ask him. I will ask him. I will ask him to come on this podcast. He's a great man. He's a great friend. He's great at sales. He's great in car business. And he's a sales manager right now. He's still in the car business. We became really good friends. We decided to do stock trading at one point together. We went to seminars to learn how to trade stocks. We'll go out drinking. There was another guy. As long as I can remember, he's doing also car business. That's another thing about people in car business. So car business kind of sucks you in. You cannot really kind of escape it. We stayed friends. And at this time, he's working at Infinity. The GM, he was from New York. He was a really cool dude at the beginning, but then he started kind of hating me because every time he saw me, I asked for money. I always asked for extra money. Give me this, give me that, because I was selling a lot of cars. First month I got hired. I got hired in the middle of the month. I think I got hired like on the 16th or 15th of September it was. And there was this girl working at that dealership. She was the top salesperson. It was a beautiful girl. She had her own office and she was selling cars left and right. And when I got there, that was the salesperson I had to beat. I started in the middle of the month. I was going crazy. I was just jumping up and down, moving from one customer to another. At one point, I was closing 3 customers at the same time. I'm going to bring him here and he's going to tell you about that story. I had 3 offices of other salespeople. I had my customers sitting in those offices at the same time. I closed 3 deals in one day. So I sold more cars than the girl that worked there. And she was the top salesperson whole month. My first month working at that Infinity dealership. The general manager decided to divide the salespeople in 2 groups, group 1 and group 2. I was the closer for group 1, and one of our friends, he was a closer for group 2. And my group, every month for about 3-4 months, every month sold more cars as of a group than the other group. One day he called me in his office. Oh, another story I should say. Because my team won one time, he told me, the sales manager, not my friend, another sales manager, because he was also working with my team. He said, you guys all go out to dinner and you guys pay for it and I'll pay for the whole dinner, the whole experience. It's like a gift to you guys for selling so many cars and being the number 1 team. So I took out everybody, and the sales manager, such a cool dude. He's still in car business as well. Matter of fact, I should call him. Maybe we get him on the podcast too. It's going to be fun. I'm going to bring all these people on the podcast. They're going to tell you guys so many stories. This is the old school people. Like, this is the people who started when car dealerships and, car sales was very different than what today car sales is. So we go out to dinner. We go to Mastro's in Beverly Hills. We all getting steak. And I think one of the salespeople said he never had caviar. So I ordered caviar for the table. And it makes me laugh. So we all had caviar, we all had steak, and I think it came to about $1,000 for like four of us. And this is like some years back, you know. So we got back, and I gave him the receipt for the dinner. I put it on my Amex at the time. I was getting points, so I gave him the receipt, and man, you should have seen his eyes. His eyes were all wide open, and he looked at me. He's like, "What the, you know, $1,000?" And I said, "Well, you said to go out, you know, enjoy yourself and take care of the other guys, and the dinner is on me, the experience on me. I mean, you didn't even say go to Mickey D's, you know." Obviously, he didn't pay out of his pocket. It was just an expense from the dealership, but he never forgot to let me know about it. Every sales meeting, he will bring it up. But I mean, he was a cool guy, you know. I mean, I don't blame him, but he didn't really get along with me just because I always asked him for more money, for more bonuses, and I wanted to be a sales manager. I wanted to move up. I didn't want to be a salesperson for the rest of my life. I wanted it every time, every few months or so. I wanted to move up, learn something new. I didn't want to stay and act I'm running on a treadmill. So he didn't like that. And one day he pulled me in the office and he said, "Frank, I'm gonna stop this whole team, you know, situation. There's no gonna be no more teams. There's not gonna be no more closers. So you're not gonna be a closer anymore. You're gonna go back in sales, and you're gonna start selling it." And I was very sad. Not gonna lie to you, I got really pissed off, and at this point, I'm still really hot-headed. And I think I started yelling at him like, "What do you mean?" and this and that. You know, because he made me all these promises. He said, "You know, you're gonna be a closer, then you're gonna be a sales manager." I did not like what I heard that day. Let's just put it that way. And I told him why. And this is important, what I'm about to say right now. He said, "If you don't sell cars for me, if you don't sell as many cars for me as you do, who's going to sell those? Where am I going to find another salesperson like you?" And that hit me really hard. That got me to start thinking, so if I'm good at what I do, that means I'm going to be stuck at that job. Because who they're going to find to be doing the same thing that I'm doing? And that was a reality check. That was the reality of the fact that if you're really good at something you do, there is no moving to a different department because you're good at what you do. You're valuable for that company, for that corporation, for that store. You're so valuable for that business because of what you do, not because of what you want to do at your next position. Because if they replace you, what are they going to do with your position? Who's going to replace it? Who's going to give him the same effort, the same results as you were giving him? So he pulled me to his office and told me he's going to stop the whole thing. And I'm not going to be a closer. Not that I'm not going to be a sales manager no more. I'm not going to be a closer anymore. And he wants me to sell him 25, 30 cars a month. And I was really sad. And I told him I'm not going to. He said, "What do you mean you're not going to?" And then keep in mind, he's a general manager of the dealership. I looked at him straight in his eye, and I didn't use the F word, but I told him with all respect, I'm not going to sell you that many cars. You made me a promise. Be a man and honor the promise you gave me. He said, "I'm a man, but I can't do that. I'm not going to be able to find another person that fast and easy to replace you." And that was the end of it for me at that dealership. I walked out of the office and I decided not to sell cars as many. See, I hate average. I cannot stand average. Average, no one gets excited about average. Imagine a new movie is coming out and they're advertising the movie. There's an average movie coming to the theaters near you. Who's going to go watch it? No one. I don't know. I mean, I'm telling you, that day I was so pissed. I walked out of his office. I made a decision to move up. I wanted it at one point own my own dealership. I wanted to make a name for myself. I really value what people tell me, and I count on their word. And at that time, I was still younger and more naive, and I should have known that most businesses, big businesses, they all lie. I mean, think about it. They're the leaders, and we're the soldiers. So they have to hype us up, give us false hopes to get us to do what they want us to do. Obviously, this is not 100% of every time. There are exceptions, but I'm talking about general. So I left that place. I went to work for Mercedes-Benz at this time. I got to meet really awesome people at Mercedes. The general manager was an amazing person. The general sales manager, I met some friends that later became managers. One of them is also still at Mercedes. Another one was on one of the awesome shows on TV, on Discovery Channel. I mean, I can tell you guys stories for days. I never accepted any promise by any of these people of any job I've ever worked for, because you could see like all the salespeople working at these car dealerships. Most of them, they didn't know what the heck they're doing. That's why there's a huge turnaround in sales. Most salespeople go get a job. This is my opinion, by the way. If you don't agree with me, write in the comment. Let me know. We can talk about it. Most salespeople go become a salesperson, get a job. They give them a business card, and it says salesperson or sales staff or something, whatever. This something with sales, and they get all excited. Oh, I'm a salesperson, and they just go in it and try to figure things out by themselves. And most of them, they don't really become number one salespeople. And I think it's because they were not hungry enough to go after learning different techniques of what to do, what not to do to become a better version of themselves. And now I look back, I really tried to be better at sales. I was reading books, articles, listening to Grant Cardone or whatever else I can find to understand how to and what to say to people and get better at what I do. After what happened at Infinity, I decided to maybe the way to do it is to start my own dealership. And after that Mercedes dealership job, I was there for a few years. I decided to start my own used car dealership. A lot of people tell me it's hard, it's difficult, it's this, that. But I had a really good friend of mine. He owned a mechanic shop. And there was a side of his place that the zoning of the place qualified for it to get a license for that place. So I went after that and I got the license and I started going to auto auctions and buying cars, got a line of credit, start, doing everything a car dealership does, but a smaller scale of it all by myself. I used him as my mechanic. He will help with fixing cars and smog and will come with me to the auction. And the funny thing is, he actually later on, he decided to start his own car dealership and he opened up a used car dealership. He doesn't own it anymore. And I tried to get him on this podcast too. And if you're listening to this, I'm talking about you. Yes, you. There's so many awesome people in my life. I've been truly blessed with all the people that have come in my life. Some friends, some coworkers in all line of work. And I'm truly grateful for all of you guys. I'm going to try to get as many of them on this podcast. I'm sure they're all going to bring so much knowledge and fun stories for you guys to tell. But going back to my story, I started a used car dealership. We're going to auto auctions and we're buying cars. And I'm not going to lie to you, the hardest thing owning a used car dealership was not selling cars, was buying cars. At auto auctions, I'm telling you, man, 90% of cars at auto auctions are junk. They're absolute junk. It is the hardest thing to do, finding cars that worth reselling, and they didn't need a lot of recon. Recon means reconditioning. I learned a lot starting the car dealership. I had to sign up with the lenders, with the banks, subprime, mostly because of the neighborhood I was and the type of cars I was selling. They're not as expensive. So I dealt with more of a subprime customer and people that were looking for less expensive cars, more of a budget friendly, let's call it. And another fun story to tell you guys. I remember when I sold my first car in my own dealership. If I only tell you, I went home with a back pain. I was so stressed that I had so much pain in my back. Everything was set up. The young girl showed up with her grandma. I think it was around 10 a.m. She purchased a used car from me. She saw the car, she liked the car, and she said she needs financing. This is my first few days opening, and at that time I didn't have any banks. I didn't have any prime or subprime banks. So I start dialing numbers, and someone told me call this bank. Someone called me that bank. So finally, I found a lender that will take a look at this deal without me being signed up with them. It was a subprime bank. I emailed them all the documents. They looked at it. They got the girl approved, and we were ready to sign a contract. My computer stopped working. My computer came back live. The printer stopped working. The printer wouldn't print. Only if I tell you how hard that day was. I mean, I'm telling you, it doesn't matter. There's no way for me to explain it to you guys how difficult that day was for me. Now I'm thinking about it. It was a crazy day. I will never forget that day. So the printer wasn't working. And now at this point, I'm like, how am I going to print all the documents? I mean, we're not talking about just one or two forms. And I've never even filled one with hand. I mean, who does that? I started Googling each contract, taking a look how I need to fill it out. That day was something. That girl and her grandma that left the dealership around 8:30 at night. These poor girls were tired. We bought food for everybody. I mean, they saw the whole thing fell apart. But I think one of the reasons they didn't leave was because I got the girl finance, and she was a first-time buyer. She never purchased a car before, and her credit was not all that. So, but we did it, and I was proud of myself. But I got home, I was tired. I was exhausted. I had so much back pain. I remember I had back pain for 2-3 days after that. I was so stressed. And the next day, I turned on the computer, the printer, everything worked fine. Everything worked fine. Like nothing happened the day before. And I was sitting there, I'm like, why this needs to happen to me? It was crazy. After owning the dealership, I decided to start a new car franchise. I started looking for investors. When I tell you, I always wanted to move up and do better and be better. This is something that has been programmed in my mind, and I cannot help it. I cannot control it. I have to always achieve more and better. I cannot stop. So after owning the used car dealership, I decided to open up a new car franchise. I started searching for investors, and I found one. And as a matter of fact, we're still friends till today. However, the deal didn't happen. He backed out last minute. And the reason I'm telling you guys all of these stories is because, one, I hope you guys find it entertaining. And two, you guys get to know me a little bit more. And three, I think that qualifies me to answer that guy's question. Should you go and become a car salesperson and get a job at a car dealership? So I told him, yes, he should. He should go get the job for many different reasons. Not only to have a job. I told him he needs to go get the job. But before he do so, he needs to come up with a plan. He needs to have an end game in mind. What's the plan? What is he trying to go? What is he trying to reach? Does he want to open a business? Does he want to make money? How much money he wants to make? He needs to make a plan exactly what he's trying to do. Then go get that job. Because then that job becomes a tool. It's no longer a job. No one wants a job. A job sucks. A job becomes enjoyable when it becomes your tool to reach your goal. So when you go to work, you know you're doing this because you're trying to reach something else in your life. It's no longer a job that you have to do. It's not a place to go to work. So I told him, yeah, go get the job, but come up with a plan and be better at what you do. And start learning. And I told him, start learning how to do sales. Start reading books. Start reading articles. Watch videos. Work on yourself. Because the people that you go to car dealerships to work with, most of them, they are not good at what they do. Otherwise, they will not be at the same job doing the same thing over and over with the same results. Let's be honest. If you do the same thing over and over, you work at the dealership, let's just say for 3, 4, 5 years, and you're still pushing out the same amount of cars month after month, and sometimes even less than the month before, are you really good at what you're doing? So I told him he needs to become really, really good at what he does. He needs to learn. He needs to learn from the best and take it serious. Take the job very serious, because when you take a job serious, your customers and other people will take you serious. Work on yourself in your physical shape. Go to the gym. Work on your the way you dress. Dress nice. People will look at you differently when you dress nice and you act confident. You cannot argue with me on that. There's no way around it. I've experienced this in my life, and it actually it's a pleasant thing when someone tells you, "Oh, you look nice," or "I like the jacket you're wearing," or "I like your shoes," or whatever compliment people give you. It's a nice thing, and that will help you, and that will boost your confidence, and that will help you when you're in sales, because when you talk to customers, you don't want to have like a shaky voice. You don't want to be like, okay, well, you showed up to work. Okay, well, yeah, this is the car, or okay, well, how much you want to pay, or there's a lot of salespeople talk like that. So this is not what you want to be. You want to take it serious, act like it's your own business, because when you act like it's your own business, you start doing things differently. I told him this worked for me in the past, and I hope it works for him when and if he gets the job. If you look at it as if it's your own business, a couple of things happens. One, you take the customer way more serious, and you value that customer way more than if you just work for someone. Let me explain. If it's your business and you actually have to spend money on operation, you have to spend money for advertisement to get the customer through the door, get the customer on the phone, get the customer to email you, you deal with that person so much different than when you have not spent a penny and you're just there and the phone rang, you pick up the phone, hello, thank you for calling this dealership, my name is whatever, how can I help you? That becomes a whole different ballgame. When you actually spend money, when that customer calls you, when that phone rings, when that email comes, you think twice how to answer it. You will totally have a different attitude because it costs you money. So you value that customer way more than if you would have just get a job and you just happen to pick up the phone. This is what I was telling the guy. Based on my experience and what worked for me, there are sales tactics the right way, not by lying, cheating, and deceiving people. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about be professional, be helpful, and truly want to be the best at what you do. That's what I'm talking about. So I told him, be better, learn, get better every day, and don't take your eye off your goal. And that's the only way you become successful at whatever you're doing, sales or anything. So he said he wants to own a business one day, which is great. And I cheered for him, and I hope he does, hopefully sooner than later. But I also told him to take the job very serious and know that time is short. So the sooner he, gets better at what he does, the sooner he can reach his goals. I also recommended a book for him to read, which I also recommend this book to all of you listening or watching this podcast. It's one of my favorite books, man. When you read this book, you will know who you are. This book categorizes people in different categories. And if you're a cleaner, and you will know what a cleaner means after you read this book, I recommend this book to everyone. It's called Relentless. I cannot say this enough. You need to grab this book. You need to read it, especially if you're in sales, especially if you're an entrepreneur, especially if you're someone that's working on yourself. You want to be a better version of yourself. You want to do so much great in your life and so much greater in your life than what you're doing right now. Grab this book. I will have the link in the description area, in the caption area, whatever you're watching or listening this. Grab it, use that link. It will support me and it helps the channel as well. It will help a podcast. But seriously, all joke aside, grab this book, read it, and I want you to come back after you finish it and tell me what you are. Are you a cleaner or you're something else? I really want everyone that grabs that book come back and tell me that. Let's make this fun. And I will tell you guys if I get 5 comments, if I get 5 people, at least 5, okay? I think 5 is a good number. I think it's a fair number. If I get 5 people to come back and tell me they read the book and what they are, then I will say what I am. But I think by the time you finish this book, you will know what I am. But let's just not talk about it anymore. You come back, you tell me what you are after reading the book, and I will tell you what I am. Matter of fact, I got the book from my brother. I should ask him if he had a chance to read it or not. And I also told him that this car sales is changed. Car sales has changed so much since I started in this business. When I started, obviously there was no car gurus, there were no autotrader.com, cars.com, and a bunch of different websites to go and take a look at the prices of the cars, especially new cars. It's much more competition. I mean, there's so much information out there right now that was not available many years back when I started, or some of you have started. Imagine yourself right now picking up a phone and calling a business. How would you feel if the person answering the call, it's so nice, it's so helpful, with a great attitude, versus calling a place that don't give a damn about you, they don't care if you happy or not, or were helped or not helped. Just you be the judge of that. So I told him there's a lot of competition, and where you win is you. You win by being you, being helpful, seriously want to help someone, and care about that person, and care about losing that person. Or I should say, care about not losing that person. Let them know that you don't want to lose them as a client, as a friend, as a customer for life. Now, the reason I say this, again, I only talk about my own experience and the way I do business. I have many of my previous customers today, till this day, I'm talking to you right now. They still contact me. These are people bought cars 10, 12 years ago, maybe even longer from me. They still contact me, and whenever they need a car, or they send me someone that is interested about a car, or not even cars. Sometimes we just chit chat about random things because now we became friends. And I think relationships, again, touching on this one more time, relationships in sales is one of the most important things. So I told him that that's what he needs to do, because car sales is changed, especially after what Tesla did. Idea of self-service, customer go online, order, pick up the car, get approved online, everything online until the customer wants to test drive or pick up the car. And a lot of dealers, a lot of other brands, I think they will follow the same path, the same way. Right now, Amazon and Hyundai just started working together, and a lot of other brands also trying to make it very easy and seamless. But in my opinion, they haven't been successful at that yet, because I worked for this one dealership and I was talking to one of the guys that worked there, and they said, okay, well, customer comes in, this happens, that happens. And I was like, but that's still too long. That's still not the right way to do it. And I know why dealerships are not doing it, or at least a lot of these dealerships is still like, they act like this is 2003. They act, they say no. They say no to your face. No, we have technology, we're doing this, we're doing that. But even though they say they're trying to make it so easy for customers, and the sales process is so much shortened than what it used to be, they still not doing it the right way. And I know why, because they're trying to maximize their profit margins. They try, by each section of the sales process, they're trying to make a little more money, make a little more money, make a little more money, which is okay. I mean, they're in the business to make money. You cannot argue with them about the fact that they want to make money. They're in business to make money, and they should make money. But I think it is a better way to do it. We'll talk about it another time. But one of the ways to do it is to show the customer that you truly care about their time, because there's so much time being wasted at the car dealerships. 5, 6, 7, 8 hours of sitting around waiting to type paperwork, sign contracts, negotiate deals back and forth. They want to say the process changed, but I honestly is not changed as much as you would hope for it to be changed. And they don't pay the salespeople enough. Some of the sales managers also don't get paid as much as what they used to. I feel like the customers don't get the best service from those salespeople, because the salespeople, all they care about is the sale. They pay peanuts, so they're not getting the top tier salespeople. They just get people that just want to sell a car, or salespeople are not incentivized to help the customer after sales. So the customer goes to buy a car, and the salesperson do everything they in the power to sell that person a car. And when the car is sold, after sales, there's no follow-ups, or in most cases, there are no follow-ups. They don't follow up with the customer to see if they're happy, if they need help. Because today, technology has advanced so much than what it used to be back in 2003 when I started. Customers need help to figure out a lot of this features and options on their cars. After Tesla started the whole process of everything online. You go pick a car you want or special order it. You put a deposit, pick it up when it's ready. No salespeople, no negotiation, no back and forth. I think a lot of people felt confident about the whole process because one, most people don't like negotiating. Two, a lot of people, even though they do negotiate, they don't feel like they got a best deal, and there's always a chance that they pay too much for something and somebody else might have paid a little less. And I think that's something a lot of dealers don't understand, that is not just only because customers don't like to do negotiation. It's because customer know, if I paid this much for this car, let's just say I paid $40,000 for this Tesla model, let's just say Y. I know everybody else also paid $40,000. Now, yes, Tesla has started reducing some prices for the cars, especially towards the end of the year. But every dealership does that. But besides that, everyone knows exactly how much they paid for the car. So customers know, if I pay this much, I feel confident that I got the same deal as everybody else. And they don't feel like they got screwed. In most cases, right? Think about it. But if you go get a car at a typical car dealership, even though you do negotiate, there's always that little chance, in your head, that voice in your head tells you, you got screwed. Maybe you didn't get a good enough deal. Maybe you should have negotiated harder, or maybe you didn't get enough for your trade. There's always that, that little voice in your head that tells you that. But if there's one price for everyone and everyone has to pay the same price, that voice disappears. You get the same deal as everybody else. And I think that's one of the main reasons that people like to purchase the Teslas. The process is easy. No salespeople, no haggling, no being screwed by a salesperson, not being pushed into buying something you don't need or want. And everybody else is paying the same price. And I think that's where the future of car business is going to be. A lot of other dealers will start following the Tesla's steps, and as we see right now, Amazon and Hyundai, they're going to start working together, and I can only imagine what's next, or what the next automotive brand that is going that way. I remember Ford CEO was talking about starting making a one price car sales a process for the dealers and start selling cars the same way that Tesla does. So that, I think that's what the future of car business will be. Obviously, used cars are different. There will always be a salespeople needed for used cars in one way or another. But new cars, I think that's where it's going. So I told the man that wants to become a car salesperson all of this. I told him he needs to get good. He needs to get really good very fast before that time comes, and use that job as a tool, as I said, as a tool, and get where he's trying to go. So we're coming to the end of this episode, and I hope you guys found it entertaining and you guys enjoyed some of the experiences I had that I shared with you guys. And if you agree or disagree with anything I've said, please write it in the comment area. Like this, review it, make a comment. I love to hear from you guys. And I want to say thank you to all of you that have watched or listened to any of the podcasts in the past. And you guys' support means a lot to me. I'm trying to not to get emotional about it, but seriously, truly, you guys that listen to this podcast, watch this podcast, I love all of you, every single one of you. So don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on the next episodes. But yeah, thank you guys, and till the next one. Take care, guys.